The clock read 05:29 when the first engine screamed to life at Bandar Abbas. Then another, then four more, then all 16. 16 MiG-29 Fulcrums, Iran's most capable air superiority fighters, its most experienced pilots, its most carefully rehearsed strike package, rolled onto the runway in the darkness above the Strait of Hormuz. The Revolutionary Guard Air Force had wargamed this moment for years, debated it, refined it, killed it in committee, revived it, killed it again. Now, on a Tuesday morning in the Persian Gulf, someone at the top of the Iranian command structure had looked at the USS Abraham Lincoln sitting in the northern Arabian Sea and made the decision that would define the decade. Throttles forward, afterburners lit. 16 aircraft climbed into the pre-dawn sky. 40 miles away, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye was already watching. The Iranian plan was genuinely sophisticated, and that matters for understanding what happened next. Tehran hadn't simply ordered 16 fighters to charge at a supercarrier. The attack had architecture. Alpha Squadron went low, 50 feet above the wave tops, riding the sea clutter, trying to disappear beneath the radar horizon in a move that had theoretically worked against older systems. Bravo climbed high and started broadcasting, its electronic warfare pods flooding American frequencies with noise, designed to blind, confuse, overwhelm. Charlie flew the real strike profile, armed with Noor anti-ship missiles, its 4 pilots understanding with complete clarity that they were the tip of the spear, the ones who had to actually put ordnance on an American carrier. Delta went wide in a completely different direction, a decoy designed to split American attention, divide American resources, introduce hesitation into American decision-making at the worst possible moment. On paper, it was a textbook multi-axis saturation approach, layered, coordinated, difficult to defend against cleanly. In practice, it was already bleeding before the MiGs crossed the coastline. The E-2D Hawkeye had been orbiting for hours, its rotating radar dish sweeping continuously, its AN/APS-145 system built specifically to find low-flying aircraft over water, a capability the United States had refined over decades of watching exactly this kind of threat develop. Alpha's sea-skimming run, the move Iranian planners had considered their most survivable approach, was detected within minutes of takeoff. Not at the coastline, not at the radar picket line, at takeoff. But the satellite had seen it first. An American reconnaissance satellite had flagged unusual activity at Bandar Abbas 40 minutes before the first MiG left the ground. Pre-launch sequencing, weapons loading, fuel trucks. The pattern recognition was unambiguous. By the time Iranian pilots were strapping into their cockpits, the Abraham Lincoln's Combat Information Center had already received the alert, already begun shifting posture, already started the cascade of decisions that would determine the next 17 minutes of history. The carrier went to battle stations. The flight deck became controlled chaos, organized, rehearsed, but electric with urgency. 8 minutes after the first detection, 4 A-18F Super Hornets were airborne and climbing, their APG-79 AESA radars already reaching out ahead, their pilots receiving a complete tactical picture fed directly from the Hawkeye. 4 more Hornets followed within minutes. An EA-18G Growler, an electronic warfare aircraft that had been on patrol since before the MiGs launched, turned toward the incoming threat and began its own work. Simultaneously, across the strike group, the Aegis combat system woke up. The SPY-1D phased array radar on USS Leyte Gulf found the MiG-29 formation within 90 seconds of the first radar returns. 16 tracks, 16 fire control solutions. The system had already sorted them for threat priority, calculated intercept geometries, and loaded targeting data into the vertical launch cells below decks. The destroyer's crews stood at their stations. The numbers on their screens were aircraft. The numbers were also people. The training had taught them not to think about the second part. Here is what modern aerial warfare actually looks like, stripped of romance. It happens at distances so vast that the combatants never see each other, resolved by physics and algorithms before any human instinct can intervene. Mostly.
The Hornets launched from beyond 60 miles. AIM-120D AMRAAMs dropped off the rails, their active radar seekers going hot, each missile accelerating to Mach 4 and turning toward a target it had been told to find and kill. Simultaneously, the EA-18G Growler's jamming pods went to full power, flooding the Iranian radar warning receivers with electronic noise, destroying the situational awareness the Iranian pilots needed to execute their countermeasures. The Growler didn't fire a single bullet. It didn't need to. It severed the electronic nervous system of the Iranian formation, disrupting data links between aircraft, scrambling the coordinated picture that made multi-squadron attacks coherent, turning 16 aircraft flying a synchronized assault into 16 aircraft flying alone in a fog they couldn't see through. But Iranian pilots had trained for fog. Alpha Squadron took the first hits. 2 aircraft went down in the opening exchange, ejection seats fired, parachutes opening over the warm water below. The third MiG, its radar warning receiver screaming, broke hard and managed to defeat an incoming missile with a combination of chaff and a violent displacement maneuver that its pilot had rehearsed 1,000 times in simulation. He turned west and ran, shaken but flying. The fourth broke south. 2 MiGs lost, 2 running. Alpha was finished as a fighting unit. Bravo had always been, in operational terms, a sacrifice. High altitude, predictable flight path, broadcasting electronic emissions like a lighthouse. One AMRAAM found its mark almost immediately. A second Bravo pilot, watching his wingman disappear off his scope, pulled a last-second jink that put him outside the missile's terminal guidance envelope by less than 200 meters, a margin so thin it belonged more to luck than skill. He turned for home without firing a shot. The remaining 2 Bravo aircraft followed. Their jamming had partially worked, not enough to blind the Americans, enough to complicate them. One more MiG gone. The jamming had bought Charlie something. Charlie pressed on. These were Tehran's best pilots, selected for this mission precisely because Iranian planners understood that if anyone was going to break through, it would have to be through professionalism, discipline, and sheer determination to close the distance. The Growler's jamming was real, but not total. In the noise and confusion of the electronic environment, Charlie's flight lead found a seam. He flew it. His wingman flew with him. They pushed the geometry hard, accepting risks that a rational threat assessment would have ruled out, and they got close enough. 2 Noor anti-ship missiles came off the rails. The Aegis system on USS Lady Gulf had firing solutions on both within 4 seconds. SM-2 interceptors launched. 1 Noor was killed cleanly 18 miles out. The second defeated its first interceptor, a genuine achievement of Iranian missile engineering, the seeker head performing exactly as designed against the SM-2's terminal guidance, and continued inbound. A second SM-6 was already in the air. The Noor flew another 9 seconds before the SM-6 killed it 6 miles from the strike group. In those same 9 seconds, the 2 Charlie pilots who had launched were engaged by AMRAAMs from the Hornet section. 1 ejected, 1 made it out, low fuel, 1 engine degraded by a proximity detonation, his aircraft trailing a faint smoke line visible to the Hornet crews, watching from 15 miles away. He crossed back into Iranian airspace, barely flying. Delta had already gone. The decoy flight turned south the moment the shooting started, their mission rendered pointless by the failure of American forces to be deceived by anything. American controllers tracked all 4 Delta aircraft, all the way back to Iranian airspace. The message their departure sent needed no interpretation. 17 minutes after the first AMRAAM launched, the last Iranian aircraft crossed back into Iranian airspace. 5 MiG-29s destroyed, 11 aircraft returning to Bandar Abbas, some intact, some damaged, all of them carrying pilots who now understood something about the gap between wargaming and war that no simulation could have taught them. And then, in the controlled chaos of the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck, something went wrong. A Super Hornet returning from the engagement, its fuel state critical, its pilot focused entirely on getting aboard, came in slightly high and fast. The arrestor wire caught, the aircraft stopped, but hydraulic fluid from a line stressed during the engagement had been leaking since the Hornet launched, and the heat from the aircraft's engines met the fluid pooled on the deck in the wrong way at the wrong moment. The fire was contained within 4 minutes. The damage control teams had trained for exactly this. The Hornet was a write-off. No pilot killed, the crew evacuated before the fire spread to the cockpit. But flight deck operations stopped for 43 minutes while damage control teams worked and deck crews cleared the wreckage. 43 minutes during which the Abraham Lincoln could neither launch nor recover aircraft. The coordination was messy. It worked, but it was messy. 1 aircraft lost, no sailors killed. Operations resumed. Tehran's strategic bet had rested on a specific psychological reading of Washington. The belief that American hesitation had made red lines negotiable rather than absolute. The result had not validated that bet, but it had not destroyed it cleanly either. 2 Noor missiles had flown. A fire had stopped flight operations for 43 minutes. Iranian state media would spend the next 72 hours on those facts. The framing was selective. It was not entirely false. The White House statement came 6 hours later. Unprovoked act of aggression against United States forces. The UN Security Council emergency session was demanded in the same breath. But every regional government read the subtext immediately. The Americans had taken a hit. Small, contained, but a hit. Gulf Arab states condemned the attack, while privately calculating what escalation would mean for countries sitting between these two forces. Europe split predictably, France and Britain toward Washington, Germany calling for restraint. China issued neutral public language while reportedly delivering firmer private messages to Tehran. Russia said as little as possible and moved on. Israel processed the engagement with particular attention. The 2 missiles that flew, the 43 minutes of disrupted operations, these were data points that shifted Israeli threat modeling away from assumptions of clean American dominance. A Tehran that had demonstrated some capacity to absorb punishment and still get weapons near their targets was a Tehran whose deterrent calculus had shifted, even in defeat. The Abraham Lincoln resumed flight operations. The sun came up over the Arabian Sea and fell on a strike group sailing in formation, its aircraft returning to the deck in sequence, a burned patch on the flight deck where an FA-18 used to be, its crews eating breakfast, its combat systems standing down from battle stations to modified alert. 17 minutes of violence had left the ship on the same course, the same speed, the same mission, but with a scar. 5 Iranian aircraft had not come home. 11 had. The pilots who returned carried something their commanders hadn't fully anticipated. The knowledge that they had gotten missiles airborne, that one of those missiles had defeated its first interceptor, that an American carrier had burned, however briefly, because of what they had done. Defeat, yes. Catastrophic defeat, no. In the specific psychology of the Revolutionary Guard Air Force, the distinction mattered enormously.
16 aircraft had rushed toward a supercarrier. 11 came back. One American aircraft burned on the deck. Neither side had gotten what it came for. Both sides were still there. In the Persian Gulf, in the 21st century, that was perhaps the most dangerous outcome of all.